I'm live. Hello. I'm going to give a little time for people to join on. Does it say there's really 5 people on here? If you're on here already, please make a comment and let me know. Wow. What are you seeing there? Oh, you're seeing this. This screenshot is so much wider than I expected. Oh, hi, Carolyn. Hello. Okay, so we do have some people on already. Welcome. I wanted to start off by saying I meant to do this from the ranch. I really, really wanted to do it at the ranch, but it is 27 degrees and windy. And I was all prepared, even though it was cold. I was going to be in the boys' barn, which is the warmest place I could be. We wrapped the boys' barn, which you'll see in a future video. So there's like a greenhouse effect in there, and it's full sun today. I don't even think there's a cloud in the sky. So there would be a lot of warmth coming in that barn. However, the wind is pretty strong today, and it's coming from the south, which is where the opening is in that barn. Usually the wind comes from the north, but we're going from a few days of cold to a few days of really nice temperatures. So, stuff in the atmosphere is shifting, and the plastic on the barn would have been flapping around, making a lot of noise. And I just didn't think that was a good choice. So here I am at home, and I've never live streamed from home like this before. So I'm seeing, that's my cat Cleo. Hi. She probably wants treats or something, but I'll give it to her later. All right. So welcome. Now we have 10 people on. Okay. So this live stream, I'm going to address some questions, some common questions, and some of you have sent me some. And then I'm going to tell you about some projects that are coming up this year. I do want to start off by talking about a question I got from Carolyn, which is why she's on here, about how to keep alpacas warm when the temperatures turn extremely cold. Last year, we had that. Now, Nebraska, we can get very cold, we can get very hot. So I understand both extremes. And Carolyn knows of alpacas at a farm up in Manitoba, I think it is, where it gets colder than here. But last year, twice, we had these Arctic air blasts like come down this far south. And so we had sub-zero temps steady. I think the worst one was for like 2 weeks straight. And if I remember right, 0 Fahrenheit is like 14 or 17 Celsius below, 14, 17 below Celsius. So frigid temperatures, and they were sustained for like 2 weeks. So it's not like it was frigid at night and that kind of warmed up in the day. So the alpacas had a time to kind of get a little warm before it got cold again. It wasn't like that. And it actually was a pretty scary time, because unless we had de-icers in the waters were constantly frozen. Like you take the ice out, and of course it would freeze back over very quickly. So there was a risk of them being dehydrated, and then of course them being too cold, they're not being able to warm up. So I'm familiar with that circumstance. And so how do you take care of your alpacas in that situation? So 2 things to consider: their environment and then them. So in their environment, you want them to have a shelter that does not have any drafts. So like the doors, like any window openings, any draftiness at all. And usually that's an issue where you're most concerned is down on the ground, because when they cush, especially at night when they sleep, you don't want them to feel that draft. When they cush, you want to, on the ground, you want to at least have provided some nice bedding, deep bedding, because they have all this fiber all over them, which we think that is what keeps them the most warm, right? Because their fiber is very, very warm. But in their armpits, along their belly, their chest, under their tail, that fiber is very light or very thin. And so in the summertime, when we spray them, those are the areas that we want to get because they can feel the coolness of the water. But in the wintertime, when they cush in the deep bedding, that hay kind of surrounds and covers all of those areas so they don't feel the draft, they don't feel the coldness there. And so it helps, preserve their body heat. So no drafts. They don't like being concealed. They don't want to be kept inside where they can't get out. They're prey animals. Their natural instinct is other animals hunt me and eat me. So they don't want to be in circumstances where they feel like they can't escape, that there's no way out. I know there are some people in the super cold or when there's storms coming, they will lock their animals in their shelter, whatever that is. But for the most part, you don't. They actually prefer being outside than inside. But in thinking about the frigid temperatures, so their environment, you got the deep bedding, you have no or minimal drafts. You can give them warm water. So they're drinking that warm water, getting that in their system rather than drinking cold water and their body has to heat up the water. They'll be more likely to drink that water, less chance of being dehydrated. And it does help keep them warm as it would us, right? And then you can insulate your barn. Now, most people don't, but you can. In this case, you can. And there's a few options you have that. You can go to a home improvement store and pick up insulation that you might use in your house. But in a barn, maybe the foam board, not so much the roll out insulation kind of stuff. But if you have thirds or garbage fleeces or seconds that are just horrible, those still have the same insulative properties as the fiber that grows on any other part of the alpaca, alpacas and llamas. You can use those types of fibers, usually thirds, to create some insulation in your barns. You can have them felted into sheets. The fiber mill that I worked at, they had the Belfast mini mills equipment. And one of the items that you can get from Belfast is a felt machine. And it makes like I think the size is about 4 by 3 feet size sheet of felt. You can hang those sheets on the walls of your barns. And you can even put them up temporarily just for the winter and take them down. If you have extreme heat, you can insulate it that way too. Or you can put up boards on the wall in which you're putting the thirds like in between the board and the exterior of the barn. Either way. But you actually have a resource in the fiber that the animals are producing to create an insulation for your barn if that is a good way to use your fiber. So those are options. When it comes to the animal's body, usually the first thing I do if they're shivering is put a coat on them. And I have a lot of coats. I have coats for different small sizes, and then I have a bunch of adult coats too. Thankfully, right now, I don't have that many that shiver. I think this year I just had one who was Fanny that I had to coat. She's a Surrey and she's older, so I was not surprised. But that was early on in the winter, and now her body's adapted and she's not shivering anymore. Don't have to worry about that. But it's really good to have coats on hand for those that shiver, especially in the early winter when their bodies are just starting to adjust to the season change. Like with Fanny, eventually she adapted, and that's common to happen too. So for coats, you can go to a thrift store and get old sweaters, especially for the Koreas. You can do that in which the zipper would go along their belly. Their front legs would go in the arms, and then it would cover their torso, and you can zip it on the belly, or you could zip it on the back even, I think, too, if there's no hood. You can use doggy coats, the large size dog coats for the smaller alpacas. But for the adult alpacas, my mother actually found a sewing pattern online. I don't remember the farm name, and she just Googled it to find it. But the pattern had all different sizes for alpacas and llamas. And so we made probably about 8 adult size alpaca coats. And if you've seen my earlier videos where someone is wearing a coat, that like burnt orange one are the ones that she made. And it's 2-layer. The outside layer is like a windbreaker kind of fabric that she bought like a super huge bolt of it for all of them. And then the inside are fleece blankets that we got at like Walmart or something and just cut them to size. So that, and then the really wide Velcro, strips of Velcro, I think they're like, 3 inches wide or something. So they're really durable. And I've used them now for 4 or 5 years. And she did a really great job. So they're really, really intact. Carolyn, their ears get frostbite? Yes, they can get frostbite. So if they're spending time outside in those temperatures, their ears can get frostbite. But if they're inside, um, far less chance. I've not had that happen to any of my animals, even though we've experienced those Arctic temperatures. I did get one girl, I think it was Bridget, who she had tips of her ears gone, at least one ear gone. And to me, it looked like it could have been a frostbite situation. Um, but she was previous home, I would not be surprised if she had just been left outside and that happened. So if they're outside, that is a risk. If you have them in the barn, you seriously cut down that risk. So that, I think that's pretty much my suggestions for helping them with that. You can warm the barns if you want. Some people put radiant heat in the floors of their barns, in which case you got to change out your bedding and kind of be aware of that. Or radiant heaters from above. Again, you have got to factor in what might catch fire, like the hay or your bedding. So you just have to weigh out all of those risks. There was one time that I have used a heater, and that was when Winter was born. She was born in January. Way too cold for a baby to be born. So at night, well, let's see, for the first 3 weeks of her life, she was in a coat like 24/7. And at night, I would put her and her mom in a stall that had a heat from above. So for the night, they had that. And mom also got extra food. So she had all she needed to create enough milk and all that stuff and keep them both warm. But that was the only time that I've used a heater in the barn, mostly because I'm aware of the fire risk. So what are their chances of overheating having coats on in negative 35 temp? They're not going to overheat in those temperatures. No. Um, my experience with the coats, I'm trying to think of what temperature they would be too warm in a coat to take that off. I would say if it gets certainly into the 30s, now that's Fahrenheit, 30s Fahrenheit, 40s Fahrenheit, I would consider taking it off then. Otherwise, they can wear them all the time below that. Because if you were talking about the Arctic temperatures that you were mentioning before, the daytimes are not that warm. And so they're not going to overheat. Even if it's full sun and all that, I don't think that's a risk. And if they do get too warm, you might see a little flaring in their nostrils like they would in the summertime, and then you know to take it off. But there's not too much of a chance in that when you're dealing with really, really seriously cold temperatures. Okay. Susan says, I use my alpaca blanket for a big neck warmer at night when needed, and it helps keeping me warm. Yes, their fiber. See, these are one of the fabulous qualities about alpaca fiber is its warmth. It is, I don't think it's the warmest. I think yak is the warmest, but alpaca is seriously up there, high up there if you're going to rank all of available fibers to us for warmth. In fact, this is alpaca, and I wore it. I was like, well, we're talking about alpaca, so I'm going to wear it today. See, it has these little guys on it. And I got this at last year's National Alpaca Show. One of the vendors there, he gave me a deal on it. So and I love the color, but I wear it especially when I want to be warm. It's super cute. Has this hood on it. See? So it's super cute. Um, okay, do you have a physical water heater inside the water tubs set to keep the water lukewarm? Yes. Okay, in the girls' barn, I have what's called a de-icer. It's the unit that you actually like hang off the side in the tank, and it keeps it at a certain temperature. What temperature I don't know. Probably in the 40s, low 40s, so that it does not freeze and it is actually more palatable to the alpaca. And then where I have Rum, he has a heated bucket, one of those big green heated buckets. I think it's like even it might be I think it's more than 5 gallons, but it's a huge heated bucket. So, it's like the double pane with the heating coils around it. But both do the same job, and I don't know what temperature it keeps that, but probably something similar. In my boys' barn, we still don't have electricity. So with that one, we have a really large tank, and we just break up the ice each day and pitch it out. Just like you put ice in your cold drink in the summertime, that if you keep ice in there, it's going to keep that temperature cooler. So we try and get out as much as we can. We have like all these different tools to get out every little bit that we can. Um, but the advantage of it being so large is that there's so much more water in there that when we pitch out the ice, there's still a lot for them to drink. And because of the long necks, they can actually reach down pretty far in there when they're ready to drink. And this winter has been very, very different. It's what I would consider pretty mild. Yes, we've had cold. It's been higher temperatures than normal. So we've had days in between where it's been allowed to melt enough where we can actually get the ice around the outside so we can get everything out and use hoses. And so that's been nice. But last year during that Arctic blast, that 2 weeks, it was risky even with that tank because we couldn't get all the ice out. The very outside of it, the layers were getting deeper and deeper. And so the drinkable part of it, the water in the middle, it was getting smaller and smaller and smaller. And by the end of those 2 weeks, I don't know how much longer we could have gone before we would not have been able to use it at all. But again, their long necks really helped with that. So yeah, I think about 2 weeks is about as long as we can last. Okay. Reading some of the comments. Okay, Carrie at Pacas West. On cold nights, I lock in my babies and mamas, pack and pen style. They're used to the routine and aren't stressed. Hog panel clips over stall opening so they can see out. I also keep water warmers in all winter. You can put your water bowl in the barn stalls and pack straw around it to insulate it. I tried that last thing you said. Before we had this really big water tank in the boys' barn, I was using water buckets because I could get all the ice out and refill it. And I was putting those water buckets in larger tubs and trying to insulate it. I tried hay, I tried alpaca fiber, I tried different ways to insulate it. I've seen other things like you could use large rubber tires and again insulate it with things and put buckets in it. Did not work for me. Did like over the whole winter, it didn't work. Short term, it's probably a good solution, but it didn't work for me for that. We have solar panels to be installed in the boys' barn. It just didn't happen for this winter. So that has to happen this year. Okay. Okay, so I think that's it for winter talk. Yeah. Oh, Carrie says they just run extension cords when the insulation thing doesn't work. But my boys' barn is 700 feet from my girls' barn, which is where the electricity is. So like the power loss over that distance is just not worth it. I've thought about it. I've thought about it, but solar panels it is. Okay. Some other questions that have come up. These are from comments of videos over recent weeks. The one where I was watering down the girls with the hose. And someone made a comment about just putting sprinklers out. See, I've thought about this. I've thought about the sprinklers. I've thought about the pools. Like in 10 years, I've tried many, many things. All right. So the reason that I don't use sprinklers to help keep the alpacas cool for a few reasons. One, if I leave it out there, I said before, our summers can get very warm. That's going to be the days that they're really going to want to get watered down or cooled off in some way. But the water sitting in the hose is going to warm up to a very high temperature. And say it's on a timer, because that's what I would do if I was doing sprinklers. I would just put them on a timer. Alpacas are routine animals. If you get them on a routine for eating a certain time or being let out to pasture a certain time, they know it, they remember it. And if you don't stick to the schedule that you've made, they will be upset at you that they didn't get whatever they thought they were going to get when they thought they should get it. So the same is going to happen if you use sprinklers instead on a timer. And I would do that so I didn't have to babysit it all the time, right? The disadvantage with that is that the water in the hose would be super hot. It would come on. They would know they're there. They'd be all excited, and they could potentially get hurt because the water is too hot. Yeah. And it'd be spraying them on those areas that I mentioned before, their bellies, the armpits, the chest, under the tail. That's where they're going to want it. You would have it going up that high or just that high so that they get it just in those areas. So it could potentially hurt them, but also, and for those of you who have alpacas, you probably know, you got water hogs. There are certain animals that they love the water and they will dominate the water. Right now, if I go to hose down the girls, Cat Sarah is up front and center, and she will mow me down to get water down. She can get quite dramatic. And some of the animals that I've lost in the past, they'd be like water hogs, water hogs. So if you have those in your herd, which most likely you would, they're going to hog the whole thing. They're going to lay on it. They're going to, so they might mess up your system. They're going to keep others from getting it. The reason that I do with the hose, me intentionally doing what I do, is to make sure that the water temperature is good, that they're getting it on the areas where they're actually going to get relief, and that everyone has a chance. I mean, I'm just thinking through like their behavior of when even I have the hose, there's always the certain 5 or 6 that are always in front. They always want more. And you have the shyer, less aggressive ones in the back. And I actually have to go seek them out and hose them down. They'll be standing in the back with their noses flaring, like they are hot, but they're not going to like make their way to the front to actually get it. So it's to ensure that everyone gets the relief that they need, that no one gets hurt. And yeah, like I think it's more work for me, but it turns out better for them. Oh, Julie asked in the comments, where is everyone from? Canada, America, or United States? Go ahead, comment where you're from. The analytics of my channel, I think about a little over half is United States, and the rest is other countries. I'm sure Canada is pretty high there, but there's a variety of countries that actually watch my channel. So I'm becoming more aware of when I'm talking temperatures. I have to remember Fahrenheit and Celsius, because pretty much everyone outside the United States is thinking Celsius, and here I am talking Fahrenheit. So I want to make sure to be aware. Okay, and one of the most recent comments that I wanted to address was about shearing day, because someone who had thought they wanted alpacas saw that and decided, maybe this is not for them. And it reminded me, look, I'm wanting to be real on this channel. This is my alpaca life. It is real life. And for those of you looking to get alpacas yourself, I want you to know what real life is. Because I remember the day you learn about alpacas, they're so cute. You see them, maybe you get to visit them in person, you're kind of in awe of them. And now you got all these things that you can, like, these stuffed animals or all kinds of decor stuff having to do with alpacas or clothing items having to do with alpacas that have like images of them on them. So you can be an alpaca fan without ever having seen an alpaca in person or touched them or anything. But in that phase, you kind of like romanticize what it would be like to actually have them. And here's the reality check. There is a shearing day, which I don't know. I don't think anyone has fun on that day. You can kind of make it fun. It's an essential day. Um, it's not a fun day. It's an essential day, but look, you're cleaning up their poop. You're you're getting into all kinds of body fluids. You're having to give them shots. You're doing things you didn't realize you'd have to do. So so real life with alpacas is what I want to show here. There's the good stuff, there's the fun stuff, there's the cute stuff, and then there's the essential stuff that we just have to get used to. And having to use restraints with alpacas to shear them is an essential thing. It only happens once a year. And if you don't shear them, if you don't find a way to shear them, I'm going to say in my book, it's neglect. It is essential. And if you're not willing to do that, then alpacas are not for you. Okay. Oh, I'm seeing your comments. Okay, people, we have Montana, West Virginia, Chile. See? Non-US and non-Canada. Hello. England. There we go. Northeast Washington, Vermont, North Carolina, although her heart's in Illinois. I get that because I grew up in Chicago, so Illinois. I've been here now 10 years, so I definitely feel more like a country girl now. I'm both. I'm both. I am comfortable in the city. I'm comfortable in the country. I'm one of those kinds. Arkansas. Welcome. Welcome. Um all right. So I wanted to tell you, and you've probably already seen one of my recent projects. Something that I'm wanting to promote here is helping those of you who are in that phase of alpaca loving, like I mentioned before, and you're seriously considering having them for yourself. You're kind of doing all of your research to figure out what is out there, what is life really like, and there's a lot of information out there. Not all of it is correct. Some of it is outdated, which would make it not correct. Now, the alpaca industry, I'm going to speak just for the United States. It's been about 35 years, I think. A lot has changed over that time. A lot has changed in the 10 years that I've been in it. So it's forever evolving. We're always learning something new. And we have people coming in the industry, bringing in new ideas and innovation. And so a lot of great, great things are happening. But for those of you looking into alpaca ownership, whether it's for a hobby or for a business, I wanted to help streamline that process for you because you only have so much time in life, right? You only have so many days. And it's kind of like you're excited to get to this possible new life. So you want to get there soon, but you want to do it well. Like you don't want to waste your money. Alpacas, they're not cheap. And like you want to do a good job up front. So I've created this workbook that will take you through the process of, first of all, identifying why you want alpacas so you know which direction you want to go to. What are those experiences and skills that you're bringing to the table that will help you design the alpaca life that you want? And then going out and getting experience, those visiting alpaca farms, visiting alpaca shows. So it's easy to kind of get caught up. Okay, we're just going to go to an alpaca show, just kind of see what's there. But what this workbook will do will help you get ready for that show. What are things that you want to see or learn while you're there, or experience? Who are you going to want to talk to, or what kinds of people you're going to want to talk to? And so when you're there, you're actually making really good use of your time. Alpaca shows, they happen every year, but they only happen once a year. And they're, unless you're in an alpaca concentrated area, they don't happen very often around you. So you want to make really good use of that opportunity. So I have worksheets for before you go, when you're there, and after you leave, so you can process the experience at both the alpaca farms and the alpaca shows, and then putting all that information together to design the life that you want, so you know which direction to go. And a place to compile all of your research. What do they eat? What kind of medicines do they need? What kind of resources in terms of organizations are around you? All that's in this workbook. So that is available to you now. It's actually still on sale. And I have it at discoveryouralpacalife.com. That is the name of the workbook, Discover Your Alpaca Life. That'll take you to my website. It's on sale right now for just $7.50. And I think it's like 40 something pages, 46 pages long or something like that, for $7.50. But what I'm going to be doing this month, before the end of this month, I'm developing a workshop to go along with it to help you get through this process, and also a community that you can be a part of through your research phase, where you can ask your questions, and there'll be other resources in there along the way on how to get this solid information, a solid idea. Because the first question you're going to figure out after all the research is, do I want alpacas or not? Because you may walk into it going, I really would love it, rose-colored glasses. And then in the end going, you know what? I don't think so. I think I will just adore them, the ones that other people own. Or you decide, absolutely, this is for me. And then you have a plan to move forward, to not waste money, to make really great decisions, and to build that life that you're wanting. If you're watching my channel, it's because you love alpacas, and I'm here sharing real life with you. So my 10 years experience is what I've put into the workbook. And it's going to be something that I'm constantly updating and developing. And so if you get in now, you'll have access to all of those features in the future. Okay. I'm a spinner, knitter, and weaver and would love a backyard herd, but I'm not interested in breeding. What would you recommend for gender? I'm okay with wethers. Yes! An all-male herd, they can be wethers or intact. No, you don't have to. We use the term geld. You don't have to geld all the boys to keep them. They don't have to be. If females are not around, that really changes the behavior. Most of my males now, I think I only have one gelding, and there's 11 males. 12 if I count Rum. 12 Rum's in a different barn. So I have 12 males. One of them is gelded now. They rough play and they do all that, but I don't breed. Right now, I do not breed. So all that to say, get a male herd. They don't have to all be gelded. Don't feel like you have to spend the money to do that. It's not necessary. But the advantage of that for a fiber herd is that they're going to be cheaper to acquire. When you're talking about breeding males, they're like the cream of the crop. They're the top ones. At these breeding farms, they're going to have the really top ones that they produce. And then they're going to have the guys that are like, they're not as good as these guys. They're really great, but they're not as good as these guys. We're going to keep these guys. We're going to sell these guys. And because these guys don't fit that farm's program, what they want their herd to be, they will give you a really good price on those that you can use for fiber. They'll have great fiber. They'll have great conformation. Sorry, hon, I'm busy. You have to go ask Grandpa. So that's what I would suggest. You can do females as well if you want. The females don't have to be bred, but I think it would be easier to acquire males and don't feel like they don't have to be gelded and you don't have to geld them. Okay. I'm experienced with horses and goats. I'm thinking about barn layouts and pasture management right now. I've handled alpacas at a friend's farm in the past. Yes, exactly. And part of my workbook does cover thinking about barn layouts and pasture management, which is really important, and how much land they need and how you're going to set it all up for your needs, and you got to figure out stuff like, are you going to have only males? Are you going to have males and females? Are you going to have females that you want to breed? And then what do you do about breeding them? What are your options for that and how you house everybody? And especially if you have other animals like goats, you got to be aware of your parasite management with, keeping everybody healthy. There's some extra steps there, but good that you're aware, good that you're planning. That's awesome. So an alpaca farm near me has an adoption program for a fee. The patron can handle and help care for their alpaca for the year, including being present shearing day. I'm hoping to do that this year. Yes, things like that are a great way if you're not in the position to own alpacas, whether you expect to one day or not, but you want to have an alpaca experience now, not able to actually house them and take care of them yourself. Those are great opportunities. And there are farms that do that. I think at some point I might adopt something like that, adoption program. But I got to kind of flesh that out and figure it out. But yeah, those are great things. And if you're wanting to find farms like that, there's two resources, openherd.com and the Alpaca Owners Association, which is alpacainfo.com. Those are both US-based organizations. I think Open Herd also covers Canada. But you can do searches in there for alpaca farms near you. And at least on Open Herd, each farm has their own page with information. They may or may not keep it updated, but at least there'd be a contact phone number. So you could call and visit and find a farm with this type of program if you want. It would be really good. All right. Any questions? I'm seeing nice comments. Any other questions? I think I saw one way, way up here. Let me go back. There were some questions about members of my herd. Do an update on how each and every camelid boy and girl are doing. I think I might need to do that when I'm out there. Are there any cria due to be born this year? There are not. You know what? I haven't bred in a number of years. The primary reason was when I moved to the property that the alpacas are at now, which was 5-6 years ago. Wow, it's probably 6 years ago now or more. Okay, whenever that was. At the place before that, I was breeding and we had crias. I moved to the current property and I would breed. The only ones that were having crias were the llamas. I've never gotten an alpaca cria bred and born at this property. There was one year I bred 7 girls. One of them was Bridget, who's the llama. The rest were all alpacas. I used different herd sires. I think it was 4 herd sires. So there was a mix of females and males. That the following spring, Bridget was the only one who had the baby, and that's Oliver. None of the alpaca females had babies. So I'm thinking there is something environmental, maybe a plant, I don't know, something that is preventing the girls from going full term. Um, Now, breeding was never my focus. Fiber has always been my focus. So I was disappointed about not having the Krias, um, but I can live with that. And I didn't put a lot of effort into figuring out why, because breeding is not my focus. If I had a breeding program and that's where I was making money off of, I seriously, I would have investigated to figure out what the heck was going on. Um, but that wasn't the case. And I've just kind of put that to the side. I just haven't attempted. I think after those 7 girls, I did attempt again with a few of them and still no Krias, and I just stopped trying. And now in the future, I was thinking in the future, I might try again to create a breeding program. Maybe. At that time, I would do a little more investigating. Between now and then, I can improve my pastures and what's growing out there. We kind of had some theories about stuff we know was growing out there that maybe could have been causing some abortions. I don't know. And abortions with alpacas, um, I forget how far along in the pregnancy it will be. Now, pregnancies are 11 and a half months. And for quite a long ways, if a cria was aborted, the mom would just reabsorb it. So it's not like you would see a body out there somewhere that was, you know, eliminated. Um, Late term, yeah, you would see that. But I never saw anything in the pastures around the barns, nothing like that. So if they had gotten pregnant and aborted, it did not get far enough along. Anyway, long answer to say no Krias this year. No Krias. Okay, llamas and alpacas are becoming very popular in England as they are so adorable. Many places do walking or trekking with alpacas and llamas for the public. Is it the same in the US? There are some places. In fact, just last week, I was online looking at a place in Colorado that does treks with llamas, like day treks. And I was like, ooh, I think I want to go on one of these because we're right next to Colorado and it would be an easy. I'm like, oh, that'd be fun to do that. So Colorado, I know there's a number of places there that would do that, and they'll also do longer term ones for like overnight camping trips. But because of the mountains in Colorado, the Rocky Mountains there, they'll do a bunch of stuff like that. I would think the Appalachian Mountains, that there's some over there as well. So yes, llamas more than alpacas for those types of things. Maybe some of you know, I can't recall a place I know that uses alpacas in that way, but llamas for sure. For sure. How's Winter, Vinny, Kino, and Katsera doing? Okay, so those must be your favorites. Winter, I was just looking at her today going, this girl is so big. She's so big. She's not going to get as big as her mama. Okay, for those of you who don't know, and I mentioned Winter earlier when she was the baby that was born in winter in January. Was it, is she 2? Is she 2 now? I think she's only 2. Just January, she would have turned 2. So she is half llama, half alpaca. Her mama's the llama. I bought her mama not knowing that she was pregnant. And she was bred by an alpaca at her last place. And the previous owner didn't know that. So Winter's an interesting mix of llama and alpaca. And her size is somewhere in the middle. She, at 2 years old, is bigger than all the alpaca females, of course. But she's not as tall as her mom. Even at 2, she's still going to grow some more. But I don't think she's going to get as big as her mom, as tall as her mom, but she's quite big. And when it comes to shearing day, they charge you more to to shear llamas and alpacas. And I'm like, you know what? She's bigger than an alpaca. They're going to have to charge me the llama price for her. Darn it. So, um, but she's awesome. Her personality is the same. She's doing really well. Hopefully we'll get some footage of her to show you. And in the shearing video that I just released, was it just Wednesday? Towards the end and the still pictures, there's one there of her having just been shorn. And so she would have been a little over a year old at that time. But right now she's in her full fleece and she looks really big. Okay. Vinny, he's doing well. Katsera, she's doing well. She's my water hog, hosing time. Kino unfortunately passed away this winter. So, which was very sad because he was such a lovable, adorable guy. And he was also one of my PR guys. I would take him and Cowboy if I was going to take llamas anywhere, anytime. And they loved kids. They're really good with kids. So I have to train some more guys for PR duty. Still have Cowboy, but I don't want to take him by himself somewhere. So I haven't taken them anywhere for a while. Let's see if there's some other questions here. Oh, Nikki says there's one in Bozeman, Montana that does. That must be the llama trekking, or were you talking about alpaca, using alpacas for trekking? I can see people doing that. It's going to be far more common to find llamas than alpacas for that use. Llamas and alpaca walking trekking is very popular in England too. Okay. Is that what we already talked about? I think I already said that. How much and when do you start to feed the pregnant alpaca more feed compared to everyone else in the barn? Okay, so let me think. Since I don't breed, I'm not as well versed in this, but gestation is 11 and a half months. I would say about the 9-month mark, you want to feed them separately, whether you're in a situation that you have a few pregnant ones and you can kind of give them their own space, or at feeding time that you feed them in a different place. Either way, you do need to change up their feeding. To know for sure, one of the resources I highly recommend for anyone who's going to own alpacas, Dr. Norm Evans' Alpaca Field Manual. And I think he just released the 5th edition. You can find it at lighttlivestock.com, LIGHT livestock.com. Last I knew, they were the only ones that are selling the most recent edition, which has a lot of updates from the previous edition, which is one that I have. I have the previous edition, but it is pretty much the Bible of alpacas. There's a whole chapter on grasses. There's a whole chapter on reproduction. So pretty much every aspect of alpaca ownership you can think of, it is in there. And he is going to cover nutrition in there specifically for gestational growth and lactation needs. So it's a pricey book, but it will save you a lot of time and money. So if you can afford to get it, I highly recommend it. If you find a previous edition, like the ones that I have, those are going to be good too. But if you're going to get one, try and get the newest one because it has all the latest research in it. Dr. Norm Evans, he is renowned in the alpaca industry. He has done so much research about all kinds of things. I went to a few of his workshops, one specifically on nutrition and how nutrition, the nutritional needs at different stages of development. So he did cover gestation, lactation needs. So that's kind of where I'm pulling that from. But also how nutrition affects fiber. And what was really interesting is when he was talking about the nutritional needs of the mother who's pregnant and when you give her what for the fiber that is being produced on the cria growing in her, and how those choices affect the fiber that cria is going to have for the rest of their life. Like when the follicle develops and when it needs certain boost of whatever. Like he really went into that and it was really interesting. So look him up. If there's a seminar or something that he's doing in person, virtually, go get his book, whatever you can do. He's a fabulous resource for all those kinds of things. And in my workbook, it's one of the things that I recommend that you go get. Okay. Yes, yes. Mother's Day gift. All right. So I'm not seeing any other questions. Yeah. Nerdy biology. I love that stuff. Seriously. And because I'm a fiber person, like, yeah, it was interesting hearing what happens with the breeding stuff, but wow, like if you want to get into the nitty-gritty of producing the best fiber possible, you are breeding and you are putting into practice those things that he's found. Like, oh my gosh. Now, I've done some workshops, and I will in the future as well, on fiber. And there's follicle, oh, what do they call those? But like the microscopic images of the skin, like a skin biopsy kind of thing, where you see all the follicles that an alpaca has, who's dense, who's not dense, um, different levels of fineness and how that looks. On some of them, you can actually see the medulation, which is the hollow fiber. Very fascinating, but I've taken some of those from his presentation and used it in mine. So besides this workbook that I've produced, the Discover Your Alpaca Life workbook, where you're doing your alpaca research, when you get to the point that you have decided this life is for me, and you want more than a hobby, you're like, I want it as a business, I want to actually dedicate part of my life to this, whatever, whether you want to do a part-time business, full-time business, however you want to do it. The business part of alpaca stuff, I'm developing a course for, and that's where some of that information is going to be. Now, Julie Tuttle is on here. She took one of my seminar workshop. What did I call it? A couple years ago in 2020, because it was during the pandemic. She was in on that, and so she has seen some of the follicle images. But I'm developing a whole course. So like once you decide alpacas are for me, this is pretty much what it's going to be for you. But I'm calling it Design Your Alpaca Life. Once you discover it, then you get to design it and you'll be able to live it out and make some really excellent choices. Okay. Have you ever clicker trained your alpacas or llamas? Very easy to do this, I have found. I personally have not. I've seen videos of people who have. It looks very interesting, and I know it's possible and not difficult because these animals are smart. They will know, and they're very food driven. Be very effective training tool there. But yes, if anyone wants to, go for it. That would be so fun. I'm still wanting to implement the camelid dynamics training with my herd. One of the things I've not done very well is training my animals. They come onto the ranch and they stay there. I don't halter them and train them to go anywhere. But I do want to be changing that up. I do want to do some more training that would make doing their toenails easier or herd health days easier. Just kind of getting them handled more. Just there's so many reasons to handle them. It makes life easier on you and them when things need to happen. But the camelid dynamics, I want to implement some of those things. And I'm interested to see some of my animals who've never been halter trained, They were born on the ranch. They've stayed and lived there. They've never been anywhere else. How would they respond to being trained with Camlet Dynamics methods as adults? I understand when they're young, yeah, they're more teachable, trainable. But what about as adults? And so I'm really interested to see that. But that project's going to have to wait till summer. Julie says they have the 4th edition. Okay, so maybe I had it wrong. The 4th edition's the most recent one, which would make the one that I have 3rd, and that is probably right. Okay. So, okay, there's 2 Julies on here. I keep saying Julie. There's 2 Julies. Julie S says, I recommend watching on YouTube an English lady, Terry Crowfoot, and also Nina Faust in Alaska. Oh, that's got to be for the clicker training, right? I think I've seen Nina's stuff. Nina, Nina. Her last name is Faust, Faust, for those of you who want to go look that up. And Terry Crowfoot, Terry Crowfoot. Go look up those ladies. That's for clicker training, I think you were talking about. Yeah, fascinating, very fascinating. Read about the fiber follicle. Yeah, Carolyn, go read about the fiber follicle stuff. It's amazing. Okay, very useful to clicker train them so they board a vehicle easily and with no stress. Also useful for when they have a vet visit. Wouldn't that be the truth? Yes. And I'm fascinated by people who get their animals in like the back seat of an SUV or a van or something, because I've tried. And maybe this is my fault because I don't do much training, so they're not used to kind of doing things like that. But I can get them to go up in a trailer. That's it. I was like, how easy would it be to take the one animal, put them in the back seat of a van or my pickup, in my case, backseat of my pickup, and then go to the vet rather than hooking up a trailer to take one animal all the way to the vet. Like, how much easier would that be? I've tried to get them in the back seat and they don't do it. So obviously I got to work on that. Yes, they are such intelligent creatures, and the clicker trainer works best with food. Yes. Obsessed male alpacas. Oh, food obsessed male alpacas I have found. That makes so much sense. These animals can be seriously food motivated, which reminds me of Thunder. I don't think anyone's asked here. I think on another video, someone has asked about Thunder. Oh, his fiber. They asked about his fiber because I no longer have him. But Thunder the llama, seriously food motivated. Oh my goodness. You could train him to do anything for food. I mean, so fun, so fun. He is at a new home with sheep and alpacas. And I don't know if they got other animals. I think there are other animals. I'm not sure. But the lady that owned the fiber mill I worked at belongs to her daughter. All those animals belong to her daughter. And so Thunder is now guarding all of those animals. So, and it's probably going to be his last home. I think he's 14. So it's probably his last home. Yeah. Okay. I am not seeing any other questions. I'm so excited about this. I am so excited that you were here. I want to do these lives more. And like I said in the beginning, I meant to be at the ranch, but today's weather did not cooperate. So in the future, hey, it's March. I expect the weather to be a lot better and I'll be able to be out there because I wanted to be where the animals were around me and you could see them kind of being themselves in real life, or maybe like coming up close and just, again, the real life with alpacas. Spending time with them is just so, so fun. Just being around them just being themselves. They don't have to do anything special. They don't have to be trained to do anything. Just being themselves. It's a very neat experience. And so I wanted to share that with you, but unfortunately not today. So how often do you think I should do these lives? I'm thinking at least once a month. Should I do them twice a month? Are like, what are your thoughts or ideas about that? Let me know. And if you're watching this on the replay, would you mark replay? Let me know you did that. But I think the only other thing I'm going to say about projects is I mentioned I have the resource now for workbook. I'm going to be developing that course for building an alpaca business. But I also mentioned in the last video on Wednesday that I have a bunch of fiber that I need to be processing. So this house, next to where I am now, it's my parents started a renovation project over there and it got stalled. Life happened. But they're not going to be continuing their project for a while. And I was like, okay, well, I want to use that as my fiber studio, at least temporarily. So I will take you along with me as I build out that house and convert it into a fiber studio and then process all of this stuff. I'm so looking forward to getting my hands on fiber and actually making stuff. What I do have is already on my website, butterfieldalpacaranch.com. You can go check that out. But I'm getting really low on dryer balls. The roving and yarn that I have, I did not produce. And actually right now, none of it's from my animals. I do have rugs there. But I also want to get into dyeing. I'm going to be making roving in bats. And I'm going to have yarn made at a mill here in Nebraska. But then some of it's going to be natural colors and some of it's going to be dyed. So that'll be really fun. I'll have a dye studio in there as well. Oh, you're welcome, Julie. She says, thank you for doing this. Look forward to seeing the boys and girls next time. I know. 3 or 4 times a month would be lovely. Maybe I'll do some unscheduled ones and just kind of pop in here every once in a while. As the weather improves, absolutely. Absolutely. For winter here, I've been, excuse me. I have been thankful that I had footage from last year to show you during these winter months because pretty much all I've been filming is like them eating. I have a couple spans, I guess, some footage of me feeding them. But winter time is pretty much you get there, do what you need to do, and you go back home. So, not a lot of hanging around. I have some footage, not a whole lot. So if I were to do like weekly videos of winter life, like it's all going to be the same thing. Here they're eating. Here we're doing chores. But you can only watch that for so long. You will see some of that coming up because I do have footage of it. And I'm going to catch you up almost to real time. Once I am caught up, I'm still going to be staying 2 weeks out with the videos from real time, mostly for security for the animals and security for me. I don't want the world to know what is happening right now all the time. So, but you will be kept up to date. If you want more real-time stuff, it's more Facebook and Instagram, which honestly I haven't been too good at keeping up with either, but that's going to be more up to date than YouTube, obviously. But I'll get better at it. Okay, I think once a month is cool. I don't want that twice a month is necessary. I don't know that twice a month is necessary. I think only you will know if your viewers need twice a month. Once a month seems awfully generous. You're welcome. I'd like to learn more about the hand processing for sure. Yes, you will. Okay, so I'm going to sign off for now. It's been an hour. I think that's great. We've talked about a lot. Thank you so, so much. There's 13 of you on right now. And so I appreciate all of you who've come in and been a part of this. And yeah, keep posting questions that we'll have stuff to talk about next time. Okay. See ya.